Okay, hello everyone. This is Mark Galant from Downstream Technologies. Welcome to today's final session, Unlocking CAM350 Analysis and Verification, to be presented by none other than Ray Fugitt. Ray Fugitt has been with us for many years. In fact, Ray Fugitt's been in the PC design, fabrication, and design industry before they had touch-tone phones. He's been around for a while, so he's very familiar with our products. He was one of the first technical persons to join the CAM350 team, and we're fortunate that he's been carried through with the acquisition of the product to downstream. So we're very lucky to have Ray with us. So without further ado, I'll hand the reins over to Ray, and I'll catch back with you at the end of the session.
All right, thank you, Mark. It's good to be actually showing something now. What we're going to take a look at today is something that I think some of you have probably attended my monthly webinars on this, but I thought I'd take it a little more in depth and show you a couple other options and some changes that we made in 14.x that I think really help this whole process. The title is CAM350 Analysis and Verification, but the reality, it's validation is the part of the process that I think doesn't get enough attention, and it's where we shine in comparison to some of our competitors, actually. Now, most of you are users, so you're not comparing us to a competitor, but I think once you see how you can use some of our tools for validation, it can help you in this whole process. We're also going to take a look at cam view and cross-probing. I usually skip over those in my monthly webinars, but we've made some nice changes to cam view, and I think they really apply. It's a great communication tool, and we'll take a look at that. And then we'll also take a look at the design analyzer, which we've had for a while, but you can now use that to help you qualify your vendors for your design when you send it out to be manufactured. The first slide I have here is just talking about analysis in 14.x. We made quite a bit of change to the interface, and we've combined all the analysis tools into basically one area, which makes it easier to use. And those can be, DFM, DFF, whatever your acronym you want to use is, analysis. We can do those in either individual rules at one at a time or in a batch processing. The individual rules is something new in the 14.x frame. We have Netlist compare, layer compare, design compare, Rev A versus Rev B, and my personal favorite, tool data from the fabricator against what you sent them as a designer. The cam view really becomes our communication tool. And I think I should also mention, and it was mentioned in the last presentation, going along with cam view is the StackUp Visualizer is also a communication tool. So it's a good tool for communicating back and forth between, both these are between the designer and the PCB factory or even the contract manufacturer. As I mentioned before, we have the design analyzer for vendor qualification. We'll take a look at that. And then the cross-probing actually helps us sync up to the design to the manufacturing tools, and our goal always is to fix the problem back in the CAD system. Yes, if you are a PCB fabricator, you're probably modifying data, much to the chagrin of probably the designers in here. I know I never built a board that we didn't modify the data, but the reality is any changes to the design should be done back in the CAD system. So we can use cross-probing to help us do that. I should pause right here and talk about CAM350 versus DFM stream. I think all of you are users. You probably know the difference, but basically we made the conscious decision to call the bundles that have this analysis tool in a DFM stream, just to call attention to the fact that we have this. Before we had it called DFM stream, we had users that had this capability and weren't aware of it. So it is built on CAM350 and, the 25 years of legacy of CAM350, but it really takes the analysis to a new level. We've improved the interface. You'll see a lot of changes, a lot more information is given to you, everything from, you can see here in this slide, the net names to tooltips as you mouse over items, the consolidated dialogues. I don't know whether I'll have time to show it or not, but I thought about showing Netlist compare just kind of how it's done now versus how it was done in the older versions and how much faster it actually is. But consolidating the dialogues is what really helped us. Instead of jumping from menu item to menu item, everything is under one ribbon, and in the case of Netlist Compare, it's under one pane in that ribbon. The universal error log, instead of having failures all over the place, if you ran DRC, you got a group of failures. If you ran Netlist Compare, you got a group of failures. If you ran Design Compare, you got another group. These were all separate tables. We combined them all. And like most of you, when I saw all those tables at the bottom of the screen in 14.x, I kind of freaked out, but they make a lot of sense as you start using the tool. And then we have the, again, the new design analyzer where we've actually made it useful for the designer, not just for the person quoting, which is the original intent, but you can use it now to qualify your vendors. And then, again, we want to simplify and speed up validation. CAM view and cross-probing can help us do that. So everything from being able to compare to running individual analysis to running batch analysis, all of these have changed in the 14.x timeframe, and we've given you a lot more capabilities, and we've simplified changing the rules, really, when you do that. You can pick an analysis such as copper spacing, as you see over on the left, and you could run an individual rule, just one of those if you wanted to, or you can modify a group of them and then find this is what you want to use going forward. You can actually save that to a stream or a checklist to be reused from design to design. In the streams dialog as well as in the individual analysis dialogues, you will see a lot of filtering capabilities that sometimes aren't really apparent. So whether it be area, tools, layers, drills, decodes, we can filter on a lot of these in the tool, and we've given you a better, we've presented you with a better way of doing that. Again, here's the individual analysis. This is something that you did in streams previously, but these were not grouped by type of analysis in the when you wanted to run an individual analysis. So if I just want to go out and I got this request the other day, negative planes, and I have vias that are direct connects that don't have sufficient annular ring. And the user was asking, do you have a way of doing that? Well, yeah, it's right there. Annular ring. All I have to do is run annular ring on my negative planes, and it will catch that. Even though there is no thermal there, it will go ahead and run against different types of constructs here, pads, via pads, laser vias, and so forth, and report back if something like that occurs. So again, we can do these individually. If I just wanted to run that one check, which the user did, you could just come into here to do it, or make it part of my streams and run against every design. Netlist Compare. Again, those of you that have listened to my webinars, I apologize if you've had to sit through one of them before, but I really do feel this is the sanity check. And I think anybody that is not running this check before they send their design out to be manufactured is just taking too much risk. I know in the early days of my old board shop doing things electronically, we required a Netlist. and made you sign a release if you didn't send us one. And the obvious reason is golden board testing. If you don't give them a Netlist along with your design database, then they're doing golden board testing, and the pitfalls with that. So anyway, we've made it easier for you to do, and I'm going to show you here in just a second. It's no longer jumping through a bunch of menus to do it. It's almost entirely done just by loading the data. And I should bring up, the why part, even though most of you, I think, understand it. But I have so many examples of Netlist failures, and we get them into tech support every day. And whether they be design software, CAM software, operator error on the CAM side, operator error on the design side, we just don't want to build bad product. So Netlist Compare is that sanity check. We do the comparisons. We've always had the layer compare, and a few revs back we added the design compare. Well, we pretty much isolated the design and layer compare from the rest of the analysis. So it's just no longer part of streams. Basically, you just come in and run this whenever you want to. So the difference being layer compare is just going to compare two layers, whereas design compare is going to go through each set of layers of two design databases and compare them graphically. The new streams editor, it's not unlike what we had in the past. It was broken down into 3 sections, and then you had this somewhat hidden matrix or filtering over on the right. But all of that is available to you. You've got both what I call the spreadsheet mode and the matrix mode. And if you want to set all your values to a specific value, you just do that. And whether you're doing it in streams or in the individual analysis, it will set them all for you. If you want to turn them all off and just run track-to-track spacing, you can real easily just by hitting disable all and turning that particular one on. So again, making it easier to use and quicker to get to the results. And then there's the design analyzer. We're going to pull all the minimums out of the design, and we're going to give those to you in a report format, which is something we've done for quite a long time. But then we've also given you the ability to have a library of vendors with their capabilities in there and compare it to that library. So essentially, we're qualifying vendors with the CAM tool. So we'll take a look at that as well. And CAMView. CAMView has been around longer than I have, over 20 years now. Basically, it's our free database viewer. You could open up any database and look at a design as long as it had been saved as a CAM file. Anybody can download it. I like to use it in the past to kind of go through the results of an analysis after it had been validated by the person doing the checking. And then it became a communication tool in that regard. Well, with the 14.x release, we actually added in some additional capabilities. You can now validate and comment inside of CAMView. So it really becomes a good communication tool. So whether that be your own design checker or just communicating back to a factory, you can use this tool as your communication tool. Another thing that we incorporated, though, with this release was cross-probing back to the CAD system from CAMView. So not only can I annotate and validate, I can cross-probe from CAMView. And we'll take a look at that. And what that means is we're going to look at the failure in CAM350 or CAMView and be running our CAD system at the same time, because what is our goal? Our goal is to repair the problem back in the CAD system. I tried to make a Visio kind of presentation here, but just wanted to show what this process is. So whatever the analysis we run, whether it's Netlist, designs, compare, streams checklist, any of the interactive analysis, individual analysis, the results will go into the Air Explorer. And then I can, as I've always been able to, comment and validate those in CAM350, but I can also comment and validate those in CamView. What does that mean? It means I'm not taking up the license. So I'm just using a free database viewer now to actually do that last step there. And then I can cross-probe from both of those to the CAD tool. So what does that mean? It means with PADS, Expedition, Allegro, and OrCAD, I can now fix any problems and regenerate the manufacturing outputs. Again, that is always our goal. So hopefully I can demonstrate how this will all work, how it all fits together here in the actual demo, okay? All right, so this is a design that I've loaded. I am gonna mention that I am using the beta version of the new version. Everything that I'm going to go through, with the exception of, I think, 1 or 2 analysis, is available in the current version. So almost everything I'm going to go through you have already. But there are a couple things in the next release that I did want to mention, and that's why I'm working in the 14.5. Okay. I'm going to go to the Analyze ribbon, and I had this in a few slides, but it's worth repeating. Our Netlist tools are here at the beginning. Our comparison tools are here. Our individual analysis tools are here. Our streams editor is here, and I'm going to go ahead and bring that up. And then we have the ability to cross-probe. We have the Design Analyzer. We have the ability to jump into that Air Explorer and even create areas, something I don't spend a lot of time in demonstration, but if you ever want to validate constraints by areas, we do have the ability to do that in our tool. It comes into play a lot more when we get into the Flex, because those areas can already be defined, and we're just going to run a certain analysis in a rigid section and then run a different analysis over in a Flex section. Okay. So this is Streams RC, and Streams rule checking. It's a checklist, and we call it Streams, and I think that confused a few of our customers, but it's basically a checklist, a play on our name. That's why we called it Streams. You can have as many different streams as you want to. Each of those can be made up of different, we do it by layer type. I've split up inner and outer. You don't have to do that. You can always add additional checks here. I could throw a Netlist compare in here if I wanted to. We have a cleanse algorithm that we start out with that kind of cleans up the data so that when we do run analysis, we limit the, I'm going to call them false errors, but the reality is they're real errors. They fail the parameters of the check, but they're things we don't care about. So by running this cleanup algorithm ahead of time, we can really help that. And then we put some other things in here, like if you are not using intelligent data, ODB++, PADS ASCII, IPC 2581, and you want to run laser via checks on them specific to laser vias, you can actually tell the software what your laser vias are in the cleanup, and it will assign that attribute. You can always do it after the fact. It's not difficult, but it's something you can do in the cleanup algorithm. Okay. So more on this in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off, though, just so we run the analysis while I'm continuing to blabber on and on here. Because one of the things I wanted to show you is Netlist Compare, and I've mentioned this a few times already, is that instead of jumping through various menus to do Netlist Compare, it's all right here. And as a matter of fact, if you walk through our standard loading process now, this is already done, and that's already done. So the only thing you need to do is compare your extracted netlist to your reference netlist. Okay, and just as an FYI, Mike Harris, who many of you have dealt with, is going to do a presentation, I believe it's tomorrow, on what happens when there are failures? As you probably have noticed with my demonstrations, I don't go through a lot of the failures. Well, he's going to take you through how to find the exact location of failures when those do happen. It's a little bit of detective work, but I think with some of the tips that Mike is offering, it should help you do that much better. So again, we've run the streams, we've gotten failures. Once we run the streams, I'm just going to get rid of, we'll say okay to this, but once we run the streams, we're essentially done with this particular pane. But I did want to point out that there is the filtering that I mentioned, okay? And as you go through here, you can see there's decode filter. Sometimes it's not apparent, so if I want to filter things in and out based on decodes, I can. If I want to do it based on layers, drills, so forth, all of those are available to me here in the filtering options, okay? All right, so we've run the analysis and we've gotten failures. They show up in the Air Explorer. As I mentioned before, these are where all our tables are now. Just quickly through them, system messages are here, decodes are here. I can go auto fit, auto find, highlight to search for different things. All my nets are here. This particular design does not have an external net list. If it did, it would show up in here, or I could just load an IPC net list. If I have intelligent data, which this does have, part information is here. I can always query that. My drill and mill tools are here. And if I want to change a particular drill type, I can. As you see, if I go through the various drill sets here, you see I do have some laser vias, and I even have some blind vias down there on the bottom of the board, okay, that are mechanically drilled. The layers table mimics what we've had in the past, but pretty much replaced by this layer display pane, and it's a lot easier to do a lot of these things in the layer display pane. So not really used as much. If you do get into that, if you're doing rigid flex, this will show up in 14.5. But the other thing you can do is, even in this particular version, if you want to draw an area and run a particular analysis on an area, you can just draw a polygon around it. And you can see there's various polygon types. And then when you set up the rules for your checks, whether you do them up here and you set an areas filter, or you do it in streams itself, you can run the analysis in just one particular area. You'll also notice the tooltips that are appearing as I move around here. And one more thing on the view options here. I'm just going to turn all these on so that we can zoom into them and see them. And let's just turn on layer 1 here. You'll notice all the decodes show up. Now, that might not be as critical for a designer. You'll probably be fine with the tooltip. But if you're a fabricator and you are increasing clearances and pads and, you know, doing edge compensation, it's nice sometimes to know what the decode is. And if you're running Netlist compare and have problems, it's kind of nice that it'll actually show you the net names right on top of the trace, and you can even see the pin numbers here. Okay, so the pin numbers kind of take precedence over decodes. If you just have Gerber data, of course, you're just going to see the decodes. But if you have both, pin numbers come over decodes. Okay, so just some things that are on the viewing options that, again, will help you run through the analysis. So the last one is the Air Explorer. And we ran our analysis and we got some errors. So now we have to validate them. So that's where I really wanted to concentrate today, is on the validation. So the easiest way, of course, is if I just click on an error, it's going to take me right to it. It's going to give me information about it. I've got a drill here that looks like a poured plane. So I've only got 5 mils from the drill barrel, the whole barrel, to the plane, which in most cases, unless we're doing some sort of laser drills, is not enough. So you'd probably add a comment, and I'm going to show you how to do that over in CAM view, but you can certainly do it here as well. I could just say, you know, increase clearance. And now that goes right along with that and gets saved to the database with it. So we know that something needs to be done here. Okay, well that's the traditional way of doing it, and I could start through all of these, but what I thought I'd do today, a little bit different, is let's take a look at these while we're going through the 3D. And I'm not saying you have to do it this way, but I think some of these, it actually provides a little more information. I kind of like that, how that looks, as opposed to the, turn the dielectrics off there, as opposed to the 2D view of it. Okay, and what do I got? I got a copper to copper. Let's see, where is it? Over here. And okay, I'm in 3D. Well, my components are on. Let's turn those off. And there's my air over here in the 3D world. I just think that almost looks better. And maybe it's just personal preference, but do keep it in mind as you're going through and working with your data. You know, both the idea of 2D and 3D validation. Okay, so one of the new checks that's coming in 14.5 is via in-pad, and partial vias in-pad, just that. They're partial vias or buried and blind vias. That's the one we find most of our users care about. We do have a check for through vias as well, through vias in-pad, but we found that most of our users are looking for that partial, and we've given you some things to work here as well. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. Let's see. Let's just go out here, and I'm going to actually turn on the ability to select errors, and then I'm going to show the error markers only, and then I just want to do it for this tree, and let's do that. Okay, so you can see there's a bunch of errors here, and if there's any area specifically that I know that the via in-pad is correct, I can actually just select those here, and it selects them down in the bottom. Pretty cool idea, so that you can select those and validate them. All I have to do is right click here and say validate these, and it will validate just those issues. Okay, so that's our goal here, right? We're trying to validate the problems. I don't want to walk, the last thing I want to do is walk through 133 errors individually. So anything I can do, whether it be using the ability to select or show error markers only, or even, you know, the standard charting and going to the chart and seeing, you know what, this is just telling me I have 133 via and pads. If it's annual ring, I'd have drill size and pad size and that sort of thing in there, but that just tells me that they're there. So again, these are just tools for helping you validate the results of the analysis. All right. Here's an interesting one, and I really like this one so much. I'm just going to show it to you here. This is a trace with no return. I had a customer 10 years ago said this was the biggest issue they have. So they've got this trace on layer 1, and they've got the plane clearance on layer 2, and it's running right over top of it, so they're losing that return. They were concerned about going over plane separators and things like that. And they asked for this feature, and we put it in. I just get zero feedback on it, but it is really interesting, and it does work, and I'm going to show it to you a little bit different here as well. So we're going to come back to CAM350 and DFM Stream in just a second, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring up CamView now. Same design, same results, and I'm going to bring up pads, which is what this was designed in. All right, so first of all, let's just take a look, just like I just did, even in 3D, you know, I can go to a particular error and it zooms me right in on that particular error, okay? And again, you know, you can turn things on or off depending on how you want your view, and it'll jump back and forth. But let's take a look at, actually I'll do it this way. Let's look at that trace with no return. And again, you know, it might not be something, it's more on the signal integrity side than it really is a DFF, but let's just take a look at that particular error. And again, I'll display, let's turn off, where is it? Parts, show parts. All right. So there it is in 3D, which is kind of interesting in itself. I'm seeing that trace over that area. But let's do this. Let's go back over here to the 2D world for a second, and let's cross probe. And we're going to cross probe to pads, and we're going to connect up these two tools. Okay, and I'm just going to close that. And just to give you an idea before we come back to this, what that means is turn a layer on in one, turns it on in the other. Let me zoom out a little bit. So you can synchronize layers. I can zoom in one, it zooms in that, zoom in the other. And again, this is just another validation tool that we have. But it's also a way to do a really intelligent visual inspection of a design. So keep that in mind as well. But here we are. Remember my goal? My goal is to fix the problem back in the CAD tool. Well, I came in here, I enabled cross-probing from CAMView, the free database viewer. I am not doing this in CAM350 or DFM Stream. And I can now go over here to pads in this case, or Allegro, or OrCAD, or Expedition, and fix the problem there and regenerate the outputs. All right. So again, I just wanted to point out this cross-probing, and now that we have it to the CAD tool here, it really does help improve information. I'm going to get rid of pads for right now. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger in CAMView. And I want to show you one more thing here. Let's see here. This is a good one. If I go minimum spoke width, yeah, I can go in and spoke width is this distance right here if you're not aware of that. I'm sure most of you are, but let's use the air charting there. So what I've got is a bunch of different failures, and I've got 68 of them are 1.9, and 49 of them are 3.1. Now, even 3.1 is pretty small. I would probably go back to the designer and ask him to increase that spoke. But if I decided those were okay, I just click on the bar in the bar chart. It highlights them all. I right-click, I validate them. See that? Put the validated mark in all of those. And again, same idea with the comments. If I go back to that first error and add a comment, that goes in there as well. The point being that now I'm exiting CAMView, it tells me that I've made some comments or I've updated the validation. Do you want to save this before exiting? So this is something you could not do in the past. So again, let me just list those again. CAMView, free database viewer. You can now view the results of the analysis, comment on the results of the analysis, validate the results of the analysis, and cross-probe from CAMView back to your CAD system. Okay, so these are all things that we've changed, hopefully for the better. Those are in 14.1, by the way. They're not in 14.5. All right, let's jump back over into CAM350 for a second. All right. One of the things I wanted to talk about, this is also on the ribbon up here, and that is the design analyzer. Okay. So I've developed a vendor list or possible vendor list, and I put their minimum capabilities in here, everything from even build time and quantities. And we've got a couple of these here. And once I have this vendor list built up, I can go out to the data now and just say, you know what, analyze to the vendors. It's going to go through and extract the minimums, and it's going to show me if they have that capability. And I could have put some values in here as well. Let's change that to maybe 3 days and 25 boards. Okay, and you'll notice some of the check marks change there as well. So it really does give you the ability to qualify your vendors. And we still have the report capability. That's always been in here. You can modify this. This is in a Microsoft Excel file. And, you know, here's where it extracted all those minimums. So I could include this with the design if I wanted to, maybe write it out as PDF or something. But certainly you can include that as well. But it does give you a nice report of the complexity of the design, and going along with that, of course, is the ability to qualify the vendors there. Okay. All right. So earlier, if you attended the what's coming in 14.5, you saw an example of a rigid flex design that we've included in as our demo boards now. And I'd like to bring it up here. I've already run analysis on it. I just want you to realize that even though we haven't put any specific, and I think Mark made this point, but even though we haven't put any specific checks for flex in here, as you can see, that's quite a complex board outline there. We still doing our standard checks, like copper to board edge, even though that we have that really complex board outline that goes in and out of different areas here. So, you know, annular ring checks, you know, using the air charting with those as well. As I mentioned before, you can see they're all the same value. I could go in here and say, okay, what's my pad size? Well, my pad size is 26, and my drill size is 19. Doing the higher math there, that 7 and half of 7 is 3.5, so I have 3.5 annular ring. And again, I ran this at 5. It might be because it's a VIA that I decided it's okay, validate, done. So it's the ability, I just did one of them, but if I selected them all there, it just gives you that ability to quickly get through the validation side. And if any of you are prospects and comparing this to another tool, I highly urge you to compare this part of it. So I know some tools out there that are probably just as quick as us in the analysis part, but then you walk through the errors one at a time. Also, a lot of the CAD tools that have a DRC or DFF capability, you're going to walk through all 541 errors individually. So if you don't have this capability of group validation, whether it be in here, CamView, or even the cross-probing back to the CAD tool, then it's going to take you a long time to get through them. And you know what usually happens? You give up, and you depend on the fabricator to do it. So anyway, as Mark had mentioned in his presentation, we are speccing out what flex and rigid flex specific checks that we'll do in the follow-on to 14.5. If you have any suggestions there, feel free to send those over. As always, all suggestions can be sent to me, to support, or to, I think there's even a web form on our website for suggestions. Okay. One more thing I want to show you here, and I think I'll just use this one here, and we'll just close it. And I mentioned this in the beginning, and I hate to just keep harping on it, but to me, Netlist Compare is sanity check. And then I get feedback that from some users, at least initially, that it was tougher to do in this version. All right, so I have a board here that has 5 different drills, and I'm going to run Netlist Comparison on it, and I'm just going to run through it right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import some data. This is going to be Gerber. We use our templates to set our layer types. Notice the IPC netlist is already there. Okay, all of our drills are already identified. The stack-up visualizer was something we added in 14, and you know, whether you buy into the whole idea of, you know, maintaining a materials list and working off of that list, or if you're a fabricator and you want to specify specific materials, whether you do that or not, one of the greatest things this thing does is, if I have a partial drill, that's what I have to do to specify it. And anybody that's done it in older versions knows what a pain it was to specify partial drills. We even support back drills in here, and we do back drill analysis in case you were wondering. So we've got our layer sets set up here. I don't have to click on each layer like I had to do in 12.2. Finish. It prompts you, do you want to run a Netlist extract? Yes, run. So remember me telling you when we were in the analyze ribbon here that I could do everything I needed to run Netlist comparison from this one pane? Well, guess what? We've already done that. We've already done that. We can just go back and run it. Now, if you're lazy, like I am, leave them checked. Doesn't take long. It'll come up with this and say, hey, you didn't specify a path to the 356A. We already know we've already loaded it, so it's fine. Boom, done, 6 seconds. That whole process, I've timed it, maybe takes 35, 40 seconds. And I can tell you in 12.2, takes 2 minutes. So it's not the speed of the actual extraction and comparison, it's the speed of the setup that we've improved in this version. So if you are critical about the speed here, this is one area especially where we have improved it quite a bit. Okay. That's all I have for you this morning. We'll leave it up to Q&A. Mark, are you there?
I'm here. I'm back. Okay, so
do we have any questions?
Yes, we did. We did have two common questions. So the questions are for cross-probing. What systems are compatible for cross-probing with CAMView and CAM350?
Yeah, I listed the ones we do cross-probe to. There was an issue with Altium, and quite frankly, they just haven't been open to us. And that's why we don't have cross-probing to Altium. But we have cross-probing to pads, cross-probing to both Cadence tools, Allegro, and the OrCAD layout, or Allegro Lite, whatever you want to call it. And Expedition, though I think they made a change, and I'm not sure if we've repaired that yet, but yes, we do cross-probe to Expedition as well. So those are the tools that we cross-probe to currently.
Okay, great. Another question, I have previously had DRC. I didn't see DRC in the user interface. How do I use DRC from 12.2 and 14?
That's a good question. So one of the changes that we made, let's see, let's use this one. One of the changes that we made is that the old DRC, we call it a menu more than anything, or it was even a form, really, was very limited. It did 13 checks. Those checks were limited to one drill file unless you set up multiple passes. The problem with setting up multiple passes, each time you had a different layer count, it was wrong and you had to set it up again. So the whole idea behind running analysis is that I want to be able to load up my design and run the analysis. I don't want to have to go through stepping through all these hoops to do it. So there's a couple things there. First of all, and this is not answering your question, but I do want to show this, is that in the options dialog for the streams editor, you can have a default stream. Now we ship one, and I'm going to tell you, quite frankly, we used a major PCB manufacturer to create that, so it is real world, but you'll probably modify it, and that's fine. You can have that default stream load automatically. So instead of having to load a checklist each time, it's going to load every time you start up CAM350. Okay. Now, the advantage to that is, and to answer your question, we took all of the analysis out of DRC and put it into the streams and gave all of our users the ability to run streams. So whether you have the full 120 checks that we'll do in streams, or you have, and it's actually more like about 20. We gave you a bunch more in this release instead of 13 that were in the old DRC. Whether you have either bundle, you can still use streams with that ability to set up a generic analysis, so you don't have to reset it up each time. Okay, so that's the advantage of this one, is that we've given you all of the advantages of streams, even in the streams being the checklist, even in the lower end bundles. Hopefully that answered your question. Is there another question, Mark?
Nope, I think that's all I got so far from questions from everybody in attendance. So unless there's anything further, Ray, I think we'll go ahead and close this down. So thank you again for your time. We appreciate it. We had a good day today, and we hope that we see some of you again tomorrow. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.